Ron DeSantis has been very lucky that the media is only talking about his ridiculous culture wars and not about his actual record in Florida, which is disgusting. The state ranks among the last in the country in nearly every metric that matters to voters. I have Ring of Fire's Farron Cousins with me to talk about what's happening. You know, interesting thing. I think we started doing stories about what was happening in Florida. And people said, well, you got a national show. Why are you worrying about Florida? We did stories on his ridiculous effort to do away with the Democratic Party. You remember that? And how he was going to make bloggers register and be fined if they don't register. And then the latest is to do away with the First Amendment and try to change New York Times versus Sullivan. So we did all those stories to let the public know that if he's in charge as president, you better be ready for something.
Yeah.
And it ain't going to be pretty, right?
No, I mean, what has happened to the state of Florida is so much worse than what most people realize, because it's not just the culture war stuff. I know that's what grabs the headlines, but across the state, people are suffering economically, we're suffering educationally, we're suffering as consumers. Across the board, this state has become, by almost every metric, one of the worst in the country. We were 49th in teacher pay. Mm-hmm. We are the worst in the country, by the way, of knowledge retention from students from 4th to 8th grade. Yeah. So our children in Florida statistically get dumber as they move through school compared to every other state in the country.
Well, just so there is this, we're talking objective numbers here.
Yes.
School, we're at the bottom where it comes to educating our kids. Healthcare, at the bottom in taking care of our health cares in Florida. Elder care, at the bottom. I'm talking about like number 47 through 50 kind of bad. Salaries, the lowest in the nation. Unemployment benefits are the stingiest in the nation. Although taxpayers in Florida, the privileged pay what? 1 to 2% taxes. Yeah. Everybody else pays 12% taxes. Yeah. And you just look, all you got to do is look at this and say, okay, well, this is his legacy. This is, take all this stuff, put it up here on his head, and that's what you got. Yep. This is the guy that's running for president of the United States, and all you have to do is look at what he did to Florida. Disgusting record in Florida. The latest takes away people's right to sue when they've been injured, malpractice, when their home gets blown away in a hurricane. All of these rights have been trampled on by this man who wants to be president of the United States.
And it gets so much worse, too, because in terms of life expectancy in Florida continues to fall. We're among the top in the country in cancer death, diabetes, drug overdoses, teen birth rates, infant mortality, and I was having to look up statistics the other day. We are among one of the worst states in the country with the rise in violent crime. So what we see in states like New York is a massive rise in property crime, but down here in Florida, property crime is declining, but violent crime is rising. So yes, in New York, you're more likely to get mugged, but in Florida, you're more likely to get killed or beaten half to death because violent crime is becoming so rampant throughout the state.
Yeah, okay, so let's talk about the media's handling on this. Yeah. The media's handling on this is like a yawn, okay? The only thing they know how to do is hate talk. Let's hate on this guy. Remember, he was running against Charlie Crist. Let's talk about the hate aspect of him. Let's hate on Ron DeSantis. They had all of this stuff to talk to, and Charlie Crist was doing the same thing. That's why he lost. He had all of this material. Last in schools, last in healthcare, last in elder care, last in employment. I mean, you could go down this list. But the media is so dumbed down now that all they're looking for is low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, and I'll tell you another reason Charlie Crist couldn't talk about this, because plenty of these numbers started on his watch when he was governor as a Republican.
Yeah.
And then from Rick Scott, who should have been in jail instead of the governor's mansion
for stealing $1.6 billion. He's now a senator in Florida.
So we've just had a string. Jeb Bush before Charlie. My God, we have been cursed down here in Florida. But this is as bad as it's been. And I'm terrified to see what could come after this guy, because it's not going to get any better.
Take all of these bad statistics, hanging around his neck, and you tell me that this is a guy you want to vote for President of the United States. You know, that's really the story here, isn't it?
Yep.
Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders has signed a new bill that will undo decades of child labor protections in the state so that corporations, and here it is, corporations want to exploit the immigrants that are coming into this country. They want to exploit a cheap labor, a renewable source of labor to make a profit. It all centers, understand, think about this. We've seen this coming up in Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and New Hampshire, all at one time. Why? Because all of these immigrants are coming into the country, and we realize that we can have, the children working in every kind of job, whether they lose their arm, doesn't make any difference. They lose their arm, ship them back to Mexico or Guatemala, no harm done. We can pay them poverty wages. So all of a sudden, U.S. Chamber of Commerce, man, they're excited about this, aren't they?
Oh, they really are. And Sarah Huckabee Sanders has taken, the first step for this. We're undoing, almost 100 years of progress on child labor here in the United States. We're just undoing it at rapid pace. And I just want to show this too. These are the kids. They were standing next to her while she's here smiling with her bill. These are the kids. Look at how terrified their little faces are, because I feel like the kids understand how horrible this is. You got the parents in the background cheering it on, smiling. Good, put little Timmy to work in the coal mine.
Yeah.
But another thing that people need to understand, this is something I learned, for children under the age of 16, for the first 90 days of employment, they don't have to be paid minimum wage. You can pay them below $4 an hour
By then,
across the country.
Really?
Exactly.
They're going to be injured anyway.
Exactly.
Send a little, send them back to Nicaragua.
So we're talking about being able to bring in this cheap source of labor. Most of them probably will not make it 90 days.
No.
So you pay them $3, $4 an hour instead of $15 an hour. The corporation saves a bunch of money. The kids get hurt. They get shipped back overseas, or they get sent back to high school with one arm. And that's what happens.
You folks from Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and New Hampshire, this is what you're doing. You're completely exploiting immigrants that are coming in this country, and at the same time, we're singing, "We are the world," and like we really care, like this is a humanitarian effort to bring in these kids. There's nothing humanitarian about the way the U.S. Chamber of Commerce sees this. All this is cheap labor. They can take advantage of this as long as possible. We don't even have to go overseas now for cheap labor, because we've been able to bring, 3 million immigrants into this country? And so that's the new cheap labor.
It is. And it's getting younger and younger. And again, we don't have to go to the Saipan sweatshops. We have the sweatshops here, and we're legalizing it. Yeah. That's the big problem. Yeah. It's not just, we busted a meatpacking plant hiring 12-year-olds. So instead of saying, okay, meatpacking plant, you're in trouble, we're saying, let's change the law to where that's no longer a problem.
Iowa, Wisconsin, Arkansas, Minnesota, New Hampshire. Buddy, if you live there and you don't know this is going on, it is. Farron, thanks for joining me, okay?
Thank you.
That's all for this week, but all of these segments are going to be available this coming week right here on this channel, and you can follow us on Twitter at America's Lawyer. I'm Mike Papantonio, and this has been America's Lawyer, where every week we tell you the stories that corporate media won't tell you because their advertisers don't let them tell those stories, or their political connections are so strong that it doesn't allow for them to tell the story. We'll see you next time.